Jamaica?
We're here today to record people's memories of the former Cracker Barrel. The store itself has such a rich history in town and has been around for so many years. People have worked here, people have lived above here, and the new owner of Barrel Baskit has been impressed by the number of people that come in and have had stories to share. So she thought it was a good idea that we record them and then archive them at the Hopkinton Historical Society.
Heather.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. If you could start by giving us your name.
Missy Dustin.
Okay. And would you like to go ahead and share your memories or a particular memory of the Cracker Barrel?
Well, my memories have to do with my son, Matt Russell. Matt was always a very ambitious little boy and always looking out for ways that he could make money. And his first, I think, real job, apart from the Hopkinton Fair, but a real full-time job after school, was here at the Cracker Barrel, which he affectionately called the Crack. He was a stock boy and he worked hard, but he made some money, and that was his goal. And he was not driving at the time, so I think he must have been 14 or 15, just barely able to have a job like this. And we used to pick him up and we would wait out on the side. He never was ready when he said he would be. There was always one more thing he had to do. And it's a very fond memory, and it was quite a formative time for him. He learned responsibility. He learned that he had to put in a hard few hours work, however it was. He really earned his money, but he loved it, and he loved the things that money could buy. So that's my memory.
And so now, Missy, what year would that have been?
Well, I'm trying to think. He's 50 this year, so 2023, and he would have been, so it's 30.
And so,
Welcome, and thank you for coming today. If you could give us your name, please, and then go ahead and share your memory.
Well, my name is Joanne DeBold, but when I was a young girl growing up in Hopkinton, it was Joanne Parmenter. And I lived on Beach Hill Road, where my family had a farm called Butternut Farm, and my dad was selling eggs in addition to other work he did. But I remember as a child in elementary school and middle school in the 1950s, coming to the store here. And in the very beginning years of my memory, it was just a tiny little one-aisle store with a counter and some shelves across from the counter. But my dad got involved, I believe, his name was Robert Parmenter, in helping create the Cracker Barrel, which became a much larger store. I don't have any specifics of what he did, but I just have a memory of him being involved in helping set up the larger store. And he even knew the butcher that came here to work. I believe his name was Herbie Goss. But he definitely sold his eggs here in the store. And then eventually, when he first started the egg business on the farm, and then ultimately in stores around Concord as well. But I also knew a family that lived in the apartment above the store. One of my mother's closest friends, her name was Claudine Doyle. Everyone here in town knew her as Speedy Doyle, and I even called her Aunt Speedy. But she had 4 daughters, and they were from the oldest down to the youngest, Nikki and Jill, who was my best friend in school, and Kathy and, Robin, and then Kathy, who was the youngest. But they lived above the store for a number of years, and I remember even coming and having overnights up there in the store. But Speedy Doyle had been a nurse in World War II and even was helping with the medical needs of the troops overseas. So, but that's basically my memory of the Cracker Barrel, but we came here and shopped all the time.
And so did Speedy ever talk about her experience in World War II?
I think there was actually a book written about her experiences, the name of which I can't tell you, and I have this vague memory of her being on a Navy ship that got sunk, and she had to get off of it and be rescued. But anyway, so.
All right, well, that's terrific. Thank you so much.
Do we
Okay.
have the years on this?
You said in the 1950s.
In the 1950s, I was in elementary and middle school here in the 1950s.
And so was the store called the Cracker
They
Barrel?
named it the Cracker Barrel.
All right, but it had a different name before your father helped enlarge
To
it?
be honest with you, I don't remember. I have a feeling maybe, but I'm not absolutely certain. Maybe somebody else can remember that.
Okay,
Excellent, thank you very much.
thank you very much.
Okay, we're rolling.
Well, I'd like to thank you so much for coming today to share your memories of the old Cracker Barrel. And if we could start with you introducing yourself, and then you can go ahead and share your many memories.
Okay, my name is Lee Wilder. I came to work for Hopkinton Associates in 1958. I was 16 years old. I had been working at Diamond Hill Farm milking cows, and a job opened up here, and it was paying 90 cents an hour, and I was being paid 75 cents an hour, so I took this job. And Hopkinton Associates was started, a bunch of local men bought the store that you were referring to, which I don't remember the name of, was Metro's store?
I don't
And I tried to look back in the Registry of Deeds to find out what that earlier store was, and I couldn't find it, but anyway. I would work after school, Saturdays, Sundays, went off to college, came back weekends, sometimes and worked some college summers. I worked here till I was 32, on and off. And then Betsy, my wife, and I bought a dairy bar in Lake Sunapee and ran that for 5 years, and so that was the end of working here. But it was Herbie Goss, the meat man, and Phil Grinnell was more the manager, and then some part-timers. And so it was a full-fledged store. I mean, there was everything. A line of SS Pierce, which was probably a holdover, I'm only guessing this, but it could have been a holdover from the summer days. When the summer people came, they stayed for a month, and they would have been more inclined to want the fancier groceries. Although a lot of them had little or no kitchens in these big houses, and they all ate in the Perkins Inns for their meals. So they would come in, grab a carriage. The checkout was where you're sitting, and it was U-shaped, so you could go down that side, or you could go down this side, and you could pay with cash, or you could have an account. And the register, if you were running the register, you had to remember to push cash or credit before you started ringing it up. And there's more stories to that on later. But they come through with meat, eggs, dairy, all their canned goods, produce aisle, the produce counters set roughly where that table is in front of those jars. And there was a chimney back here that had a big fireplace. So, and there were 2 benches, the fireplace, and a Cracker Barrel with Westminster crackers, the big which we'd buy and put in there, and those where people could just take them and use. They also sold some hardware. And Gulf gasoline, and people would come and get gas, and then have to have them move their car before they came in to get the groceries because they were blocking the gas pumps up. And then we'd bag it, lug it out to the car for them. This was before, there was an A&P at Kentucky, but this is just before supermarkets. In Concord, there was an IGA and an A&P. Betsy might remember that better. But they'd buy their whole week's groceries, and then let's see, George Wallace. Remember George? George Wallace ran the books, and things were slowing down because the supermarkets were opening in Concord. And so they sold it to Harold Dinsmore, and Harold bought it from Hopkinton Associates just in the nick of time for Hopkinton Associates.
And do you know about what year that would have been?
That would have, I didn't bring my notes, that was, I can't remember. Probably, so I came here in '58, that might have been '72, '73, and Harold had the addition put on. So the end of the store is the end of the square part that's upstairs, and all that back part was added on. And that was built by John Windhurst, Barbara Windhurst's husband. He came here from New York and was a contractor. And so there was a shed on the back. We tore that off. I have a lot of the parts of it incorporated into my house because I got to tear down the shed. And that allowed them to expand quite a bit. And so Harold did the books. And so we'd close at 6, 7 at night. And if it was Harold, if Harold and I were the last two here, and oftentimes just at 6 o'clock, somebody would come and grab a carriage and start doing their shopping. So we just lock the door, start sweeping up, check them out, get them out of here. Other people would come and knock. I mean, you're gonna find out how that is, people who want to come in when you're trying to close.
Oh,
You found out already?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, there were two locks on the door. I had one key and Harold had the other, because I would come Sunday mornings and pick up the New York Times newspaper bundles out front and bring them in. And the New York Times at that time came all in sections, so you had to put it all together. So we'd lay them out on the floor here and collate. And then you had to put the names on there. So Heather Mitchell, and you put them in a pile, kind of feathered it out so you could see the names. And then you'd come in after church and get your New York Times. You couldn't buy beer until noontime. So you might sit and stand around and read your Times waiting for it to become 12 o'clock. So we'd be locking up. Harold would lock his, I would lock mine, and he'd say, "Is that door locked?" Because he'd get home, you know how it is. Did I turn the stove off? And so that's when we developed that system. That I would actually tell him, or he would tell me, yes, it's locked. And he lived in the Beehive, where John Klarner lives, right. And he lived on the first floor. In fact, he lives in the apartment section that John is in. And his wife Marjorie, and she did the books. And he was a retired engineer from somewhere down country and came up and wanted to run a country store. So he bought it from Hopkinton Associates. And all the groceries came from Associated Grocers in Manchester. So there was a great big order book, and every week you'd fill out the order, and then the truck from AG, Associated Grocers, would show up and would unload it. A lot of the times it went down cellar on a conveyor, and there was shelving down cellar. We almost had a duplicate store down cellar because of, I mean, you'd buy a can of cranberry juice or something, and there would be 24, there wasn't room on the shelf often for 24. So you'd pull the stock that's on the shelf, put the new stuff behind it, and then if there was extra, take the box down cellar, and hope you could find it. It was pretty organized, but Mrs. Rodenizer, Daisy, no, what was her name? Rodenizer, where David Carroll lived on Dolly Road. That house was horseshoe shaped, and it was, it says it on the side of the barn now, Grandview Farm. And she ran a boarding house for the summer. And so people would come from Boston and stay at the boarding house. And she served family-style meals that were groaners. She was Daisy Foster's mother, so that would have been David Foster's grandmother. And she'd call with her grocery order, and we'd put it up for her, and then I'd deliver it, or somebody would deliver it. And so I had a car, and drive up to Grandview Farm, take it all in to the kitchen, set it on the kitchen table. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The floor would be covered with newspapers because she just mopped it, and you had to dry it. And she'd say, "How much is it?" I'd say, "It's $31.50. And so she would take $31.50. Maybe I'd bring some change because she didn't always have the right time. Sometimes I'd come in and she's talking to me, and this voice out of the bedroom behind her, she was sitting in her chair beside the wood stove in the kitchen, great big wood stove to cook. And, "Who's that?" "It's the boy with the groceries, Wally." That was her husband. He was bedridden. And sometimes we'd get there in the morning because she was needed the food for lunch, and oh, take that, run upstairs with those, who would be tissues and stuff for the girls who were upstairs cleaning the rooms, cleaning the bathrooms. And if she really wanted to talk to you, she would say, "What? That it can't be $31.50. Add that up for me." So you take the slip. Here's 3 cans of cranberry sauce at 31 cents each. It was just, she wanted somebody to talk to, and then she'd pay you. But I was trying to think if there's any other stories. That's about it, I guess. Nobody, I don't remember Speedy living upstairs. I know who she was, but Irwin Smith, I think, lived up there.
Doyles, that's
Yeah.
what their last name was, Doyle.
Yeah, yeah. Speedy and Robin.
And there was
Well, that's a
Mickey
nice,
and Jill
nice
and
group
Robin
of
and
memories,
Kevin.
I like it.
I could make up more, but
Well, I think we got enough.
A ghost.
a goat,
A ghost.
oh, a
Has
goat.
anybody, did you,
Or
there's
goat.
a couple of employees that have stopped in to say there's a ghost.
Oh, good luck with that.
Even when that specifically just said it's a soldier.
Take the cash home in the evening. Oh, so one more thing, Bob.
Okay.
We'd go home, and Betsy remembers this. The phone would ring. It's Mr. Dinsmore, and he'd say, "Lee, we're doing the books. Do you remember? Did Heather Mitchell come in today?" And I'd say, "Yes." Did she charge or did she pay cash? Because you'd pushed the wrong key on the register. So in the credit column, it was off by $31.50 or whatever you bought. And so he was trying to pay, he'd balance those books every night. I mean, right down to the penny. And I don't know how he had the patience to do that,
Right.
but, yeah. Little kids would come in and use it. Do you have charge now?
We do. We brought it back.
Brought it back. So these were,
Works a little differently.
these were long cards about this tall, and you put it in a slot in the register. And it would only record the total. When you totaled it, it would record that. And the machine would record it as a charge. But if you, because you'd push the charge key, but if you pushed the wrong key, that was,
Yes, we find that out if you push the wrong key.
yeah, it goes into the cash side of the account. And
Yeah.
so,
Excellent.
All right.
All right.
Thank you very
Good
much.
to see you, Leland.
It's a lot of great detail,
yeah,
and I didn't realize that you were involved with it for so many years.
it was a Friday night. The driver from Tony's Pizza came in, and he was he was a little older, but he was closer to my age, and so we'd talk and stuff. He said, "Oh, I wish I had some money. That the Frost Stop Dairy Bar in Lake Sunapee is for sale." And so, long story short, we ended up looking at it, buying it, going to my father and mother were having supper. Betsy and I walked in and said, "We've got a surprise for you." But
Did you come visit? Do you have stuff to?
Are looking to
Yeah,
take
me.
pictures of,
Absolutely.
but either you or me.
I hide behind the camera.
I'd turn my camera around if I were you.
You're good.
Okay.
Rolling.
Well, thank you so much for coming in today. If you could please start by introducing yourself and then sharing your memories of the old Cracker Barrel.
I'm Bob Wilson. I live in Hopkinton, and my memory is of 23 years ago when 371 Main Street was for sale. And my son Ben, who at the time was living in Charleston, and who is very much into historic preservation, encouraged me to buy the building. I happen to know the owner. She was a patient of mine. Matter of fact, her second husband was also a patient of mine, but he had died. And so the building came up for sale, and
Is it this building you're talking about?
Are you talking the one next door?
371.
Okay.
And so Ben said, "You really should think about buying that building, because if you got rid of all the additions and corrections and alterations, there's really a great building underneath all of that." Well, two men came.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Heather Mitchell, and I did not grow up in Hopkinton, so do not have some of the memories that others do. But I do remember we would travel here from Virginia to visit my grandparents, ones that lived in Keene and ones that lived in Concord. And so whenever we would drive from Keene to Concord, we would always stop here because my mom was especially fond of the butcher and the cuts of meat that they sold here. So we would always stop by. I very clearly remember that. My other memory is more recent. We moved here in 2000. And at that time, my sister had lived here for a number of years. And I remember coming into the store with her, and she would say, "Oh, just put it on my account," or something to that effect. And I always thought that was such a neat thing and had hoped to have an account with my name on it, but they changed the rules shortly thereafter, and I was never able to.
We're good.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming today. If you could please start by introducing yourself and then going ahead and sharing any stories that you have.
Yeah, hi, I'm Ted Wells. I grew up in town, born in 1975. My favorite Cracker Barrel story was probably 1980, maybe 1979. I was 4 or 5 years old. My grandmother, Irene Wells, was visiting from Oneida, Missouri, where my dad grew up, and taking care of me for the weekend, and we came to the store to do a little grocery shopping, and I really wanted some caps for my cap gun. And my Nana said, "No caps for your cap gun," and I snuck some into my pocket. And half hour later, was running around the house with my cap gun, shooting my cap gun. And Nana said, "Teddy, where did you get the caps?" And I didn't really realize, the corner I'd painted myself into, and I ended up admitting to my grandmother that I stole the caps. I stole them near the register, right over here, put them in my pocket, and of course, my grandmother drove me straight back here and insisted that I go back in there alone and explain what I did and admit that I was wrong and learn a lesson. And so I had to go. I was terrified, walking in the front door to the cash register and, shyly putting the caps, the half-used caps, on the counter and explaining what I had done. And of course, they were, I don't remember the details of it, but they weren't overly upset or anything. And I think I gave them back with some money, and was, in a lot of trouble with my grandmother, but maybe learned a lesson. So that's my first Cracker Barrel story, and I've one more, which was from just a couple weeks ago, which is maybe my favorite Cracker Barrel story, which is working on the mural. The mural project outside. I was one of the people helping organize the mural, and we knew it would be special, but I don't think we realized how special it would be. And we organized, a couple months where any artists that were interested could send in submissions to the mural project. I love that you're filming with them right here, and we got a lot of great submissions, and our committee was really struggling. It was hard to choose between all these beautiful submissions. But then on that last day, we had a late submission on the last day from Charlie Adams, an Abenaki artist from southern Vermont, who had the winning submission. It sort of blew us all away, and its craftsmanship, but also its message. And anyway, I was really proud to be on that committee, working with Beth and others. It was a lot of great conversations, and we were so proud to put such a beautiful telling picture on this 70-foot wall in the building, in town, that's a nod to our past, to the people who were here first. And then Charlie came and he lived with us. He was in our house for a week, painting the wall, having meals, going for hikes, and I'd never hung out with a Native American before. It was really special, and I'm just very proud of the mural and of us, of the folks that are helping put this building back together. Anna and Dulcie worked so hard. Beth has worked so hard, and my son's working here now. I don't know if he's working as hard as his mom, but it's been really special helping transform an old building that I grew up loving, and then was sort of sad to see it struggling, and now hopefully it's back and maybe better than ever. So those are my two stories, one from long ago, one from just a few weeks ago, that you can add to your record.
Well, thank you. So much for coming today.
Yeah.
If we could start by introducing yourself and then sharing any memories that you have of Cracker Barrel.
Sure. My name is Dulcie Madden LaPoma. This is Birdie. I grew up in town, and my best friend Ginger Walsh used to live across the street in what is now a yellow house that was then owned by Christine Ham, and there's a young family that lives there that I should know their names. But we used to run across all the time every day when I went over to play because they had charge accounts and flavor ices and all manner of delicious candies, and it was a place to be. Also, the Cracker Barrel was a big theme throughout my childhood. I understand you. Because my mom and my brothers and sisters and I would go away for almost the entire summer, every summer, and so my dad would basically sustain himself with meals from the Cracker Barrel, ground beef, potato salad, steak tips, all sorts of things. And so it really became sort of a running joke that my dad would have perished.
What was your family name?
Madden. Yeah,
Madden.
we're Maddens. Yeah. So I grew up on Briar Hill. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And then I've just always been really attached to the store ever since. Yeah.
All right, and so can you tell us about your involvement today?
Yes. Well, okay, 1 second. So I think it was like 14 months ago. So right now we are in the month of September of 2023. And Anna Wells approached me and was like, what are we going to do about the Cracker Barrel? Because she knew that the former owners had just had a rough go through COVID, which created a ton of supply chain issues and labor issues, and the building was in pretty tough shape. And she had this ace in her pocket of this woman named Beth Richards, who had been running a business in Concord, but who was really interested in sort of taking a multifaceted business approach to do meal kits, as well as run the store, as well as run the kitchen. And so we started trying to figure out how we could make a go of it. And in March of this past year, 2023, Anna and I ended up purchasing the building and then starting a pretty significant renovation project on the first floor, and then getting the store up and running in June with Beth not involved in the store, but hopefully putting, I would say, this entire space back onto footsteps towards like a really renewed sort of lease on life, literally. And our goal is there's also interesting spaces upstairs that are very run down, but hopefully someday we can tackle those. But it's, I think of this building as being sort of a fixture in Hopkinton Village, and as a result being a fixture in the town of Hopkinton with Kentucky. And a very vital part for a lot of people that are coming from Ware, Warner, Webster, Henniker, Concord. So we just want to make sure the store has the best shot at being successful and being part of the fabric of the community.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. Hi. You say hi? Great.